Good morning. It's Thursday, October 17th, and early voting has started around the country. And there have been record numbers of early voters out in Georgia. On Tuesday, residents headed to the polls in this critical battleground state. And we have had over 328,000 total votes so far, said Gabe Sterling of the Georgia Secretary of State's office. He stated that on X, you know what X is, that used to be Twitter until Elon Musk took it over. The previous day record was 136,000 in 2020. The state is a swing state. Georgia is a swing state, and it will be one of the most closely watched in this election. Former President Donald Trump is trying to reclaim it after losing there to President Biden by a small margin 4 years ago. At the same time, several new rules were passed by a Trump-backed Republican majority on the state election board, and they are trying to create uncertainty around the post-election process. Or maybe they are trying to create a stronger protection in the post-election process, because they probably still think that there were many that were trying to steal votes and that the election was rigged and tricked in something, because that's what Donald has told them. And that has caused Democrats in Georgia to mount legal challenges, many of which have not been resolved, even as Election Day comes closer. So far, in spite of the massive turnout on Tuesday, the election process in Georgia has appeared to go smoother this year for all of those in the Atlanta area than it had in previous elections. And someone said, the last time I voted in the city and there were lines out the door. They only had maybe 3 people working, said this woman. So people honestly just started leaving because it was that, too long. I can't wait here. I can't wait. I have to go back to work. So it wasn't easy the last time around. But now parts of the state are continuing to recover from the hurricane, which hit last month. And it also caused havoc on several other states in the southeast. But Georgia election officials say absentee ballot went out on time by the U.S. Postal Service, and they were not impacted by the storm. And they also continued by saying, so far we have seen just over 250,000 voters request absentee ballots. And perhaps in the next week or so, we'll see that rise to 300,000. And that, we think, will probably look like around 5 to 6% of all voters will be absentee in this particular cycle. And that's what Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, said on Tuesday. And Raffensperger was right in the middle of the big hullabaloo in the 2020 election. So he has remained the Secretary of State in Georgia, and he has remained one of those honest people who was attacked ballots by President Trump in that last election cycle. And there were some new state laws that tightened up the rules for absentee ballots and cracked down on the availability of drop boxes so that they may make the option less appealing than early in-person voting. Many of you remember that drop boxes were considered a big problem in 2020. And this year, in this election cycle, there will be fewer of them. And they will only be in election offices or in early vote location with hours that tend to be just like normal business hours. It's also possible that the state could continue to see high numbers of early votes, given that Georgia law now mandates 2 Saturdays of early voting and allows for 2 Sundays of early voting if a county desires to put that into effect. And Raffensperger said on Tuesday that safeguards are in place for a safe election. And there will be officials assigned to make sure that all the voting equipment is running properly. And they will be auditing it during the entire election cycle. So I think George is putting everything in place so that they don't have to face a challenge of a sore loser in this election cycle. Remember, last time around, Donald Trump went crazy and he called up and wanted 11,824 votes added to his tally count so that he could win Georgia. And I am sure that Raffensperger, who was the man on the spot that last time around, doesn't want to go through any of that crap again this time around. So I am sure that they are taking all the necessary precautions in Georgia to have a clean, swift election, and that all the votes are properly counted and that there can be no challenge to the work that the elections officials in Georgia took to make sure that this is a perfectly solid election and there can be no question of who won by 10 votes or by 1,000,000 votes, whatever the numbers show. So I don't know if everybody remembers that maniacal situation that happened in 2020, but I'm sure Raffensperger and that Georgia is taking every precaution to ensure that they have a safe, honest election. So I leave you with that. The election cycle in this country is underway, and let's hope for a good, clean, uncontested finish. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you.